Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we discuss day-to-day problems people face in their lives. Let's start with the video. My brother's marriage has been the main topic of discussion in all of our family gatherings for as long as my mother and I have been part of this family. My mom married into it about 5 years ago, which makes my brother, my stepbrother, and my family, well, her in-laws. The reason the marriage has been a strange topic of discussion is because the family had all been entertaining the idea of reviving one of their oldest traditions, which entailed that the marriage is held during the period of 7 days and 7 nights, in which multiple ceremonies and traditions and events are prepared to and revived to the T. I use the term my family here very loosely because I've never been made to feel as one of them and have never felt included in anything. I always attributed it to me being racially and ethnically different and therefore couldn't really participate in whatever discussion they were going on about. Although that still shouldn't be an excuse for them to entirely exclude me from conversations, instead of explaining them to me and making me feel welcome, I'm not going to complain too much about that because our family isn't really one that holds too many gatherings or orchestrates dinner and events multiple times during the year. We get together during the holidays and we barely talk afterwards. And I suppose I'm only saying this from my experience of being part of them, since my mother married into them 5 years ago. My unbothered tone stems from the fact that my mother and I really struggled in my life to make it to the point we're at, as my father's passing really took a toll on our mental as well as physical and especially financial state. Therefore, my feelings of exclusion from the family weren't something that's even remote to what it would take to break me down. Quite honestly, I can shut anyone out in the blink of an eye. People's words or actions towards me never bothered me because I always feel like I have a strong sense of connection and good relationship with myself and don't rely on validation from external sources. I'm explaining this because you need to understand to what extent it's really hard to get on my nerves and under my skin. I'm a very peaceful person that barely engages in heated conversations and never cared to maintain one. Not because I can't, but because I'm not interested in doing so most of the time. And because minimizing contact with people comes to me like a second nature. So it's somewhat needless to say that I wouldn't be hurt by a bunch of bored alcoholic old people trying hard to judge and criticize me, nor could a bunch of stinky immature teenagers and children excluding and bullying me without any valid reasons. These are things that I would never let get under my skin. But if you make it so that it's family and you combine the two, as well as give a sprinkle of maximum feelings of loneliness and solitude, that's when you'd have something that could hurt me, even if it's a little bit. And by a little, I mean it deprived me of the desire to be at my brother's wedding and left me weeping on my mother's lap in the middle of the night. Halfway through the wedding, what can I say? The combination of the two was so sour and bitter that it literally sparked back the desire to end my own life just to get out of that situation. And I wish that was an exaggeration because I struggle with depression and mental health. So if not, a lot of things can bother me. The things that do bother me are taken to the extremes. During that night, I explained to my mother all the things the family members had been saying to me and the things that happened that my mind subconsciously took note of, and decided to break down over when my mother randomly asked me if I was doing okay. I basically exposed all of their true colors to her because they were telling her how much they liked me and how much they think I'm such a delight to be around. And when she wasn't around, they would treat me the exact opposite, and that's pretty much the only thing that landed me in that situation. The following morning, my mother woke up furious with all of them to a point where she didn't even talk to anybody. She took out the wedding decorations from her car, which is one that was designated for the groom to drive around with his bride the following day. And then she snatched me and my bag, pushed us into the backseat, and drove off. We drove a couple of towns out north and booked into 2 separate hotel rooms to maximize comfort and privacy, which are 2 things my mother and I always prioritized. That night, my dad called me in the middle of the night, knowing that my mom would be sleeping at the time. He begged me to make my mom drive her car back home and come back to the wedding because she was going to be organizing some of the essential ceremonies and events that will take place in the following couple of days. That and the fact that the groom was supposed to be driving my mother's car, which was now parked outside of the hotel. He proceeded to blabber on and on, apologizing for how he let his family treat me poorly and how he was so sorry they weren't nice to me and how he wished he could change the way he handled the situation from the start, contradicting the fact that he had promised to treat me like his own daughter ever since he started dating my mother. He was basically letting them walk all over me, breaking his promise to treat me as his own. And the worst part was that he was only calling to confess to all of this and ask for forgiveness, to beg me to ask my mom to come back to the wedding so his son's most important week wouldn't be ruined instead of being driven by guilt or regret. The fact that he was lying and manipulating both of us to get what he wanted made me and my mom all the more furious. which is why the following morning when the sun rose and the breeze cold air took over, we went outside fishing and completely ignored his request to go home. We sat at the dock for a couple of hours and decided that the best decision to make would be to ignore the wedding in its entirety and stay there to let the family realize just how messed up what they had been doing and treating me as truly was. It wasn't our responsibility to teach them anything, but it was our responsibility towards ourselves and each other to make sure our emotions and reactions are respected and taken seriously. And when they're not, we take serious actions that could be as intense as depriving my brother the luxury of having a nice car for his wedding ceremony after his family humiliated and scarred me for life. It's kind of fair if you asked me. But I don't know what you guys are gonna think. Don't be too harsh in the comments, because for the people that are about to be rude and disrespectful towards me and my mother, you really don't know what we've gone through and what made us develop this heartless attitude to the outside world and include each other in our own little bubble that we must protect at all costs. Your mother sounds like such a hero. She seemed like a good, unkind person and a strong, independent woman. Seeing as how the entire family is depending on her to orchestrate whatever crap show of a wedding, this is not to bash anybody's traditions though. She managed to get you and her out of the gutter when your dad passed away, which I'm sorry to hear. And she's putting her foot down and setting her boundaries for the sake of protecting you, even if it means jeopardizing and risking her relationship with her husband. I just think she's really brave and I applaud her for being such a badass. The dad is the villain and the victim at the same time. I kind of feel sorry for him. On one hand, he has his family and their traditions that they're trying to revive, and he's trying to do everything to make sure everything goes right. On the other hand, he has his newly found little family with you and your mother. Although he's not really treating you like his daughter, he's still torn between making a decision or the other instead of getting to enjoy his son's wedding and enjoy the process of making sure it goes the way he had always imagined for it to go. Are we all going to collectively neglect the fact that the brother is just sitting there eating up the consequences of other people's actions in the form of his wedding being ruined or its quality being jeopardized? I don't think it's really cool that whatever play is going on between your mom and her husband and family is allowed to ruin what is considered some of the finest days of your brother's life. It's just not cool. Am I the only one that thought that? Just me? Okay. Next story. I, 31 male, and my sister, 36 female, had a great relationship until recently. Our family house is located in a somewhat remote and hidden place with a tiny lake nearby. My dad always had a dream of building a cozy resort for the people to escape from the busy city and just chill. The house is huge, it wasn't finished back then, so we only lived on the ground level, 3-story house. My sister moved out when she was 21 after finding a job as a nurse and started living with her boyfriend. I moved out at 18 after my parents told me that they would fund my living in a capital city so I could just go to college. After graduating, I found a job in a small tech firm and started supporting myself. I visited my parents and sent them money whenever I could. My sister used to visit them as well, but apparently never gave them anything. Our parents passed away in 2017. Dad had a stroke, mom passed in her sleep 2 months after dad. Obviously, we were supposed to inherit the house. We were invited to a court and found out that the parents were in huge debt, unpaid bills, and that we would have to pay for it if we inherited the house. Sister quickly bailed out and didn't want any part in it and told them that I could have it all if I decided to just accept the inheritance. It honestly wasn't a lot of money, at least for me. I was earning way more than my sister and had a lot in savings since I didn't have many expenses. Shared a place with 4 other roommates. My rent was under $200. In 2018, after everything was settled and after being allowed to work from home, I moved back there to live and start renovating everything. After like 2 years of hard working, shit ton of money investments, and lots of help from friends, we got it all to perfection. After a few months of talking to non-serious buyers, I finally managed to gain the right one in 2021. After all the investments and paid off debt, I still walked away with around 400k euros. While this was happening, I was seeing my sister and her family at least once a month, but after the Rona stuff, not that much. Finally got invited to come over for Christmas 2021. I bought the gifts for the kiddos and gave her 15k in cash. She and her husband were super excited and grateful, but didn't ask where it came from. Few days after Christmas, she found out that I had sold the house, so she called me and started screaming at me, demanding 50% from the house sale. I reminded her of what happened at the court and that I thought that she would be happy with what I gave her. She just started calling me names before telling me that I'm no longer her brother and that she doesn't want to see me anymore. Tried calling her for the past few days, but she's not answering. I told my roommates this and they think that I'm an ass and that I could have given her more. So strangers on Reddit, am I the a-hole for not giving my sister more money? Not the a-hole. Your sister had her chance and turned it down. The money you earned is from your hard work whilst she did nothing. During those 2 years of renovation, did you mention to her what you were doing? You could have offered to share the renovation work and profits with her at the time. I'd be surprised if you never mentioned it since you said you had a great relationship. If you kept it secret, I can see why she'd be upset with you. But again, she had her chance in 2018. She bailed on the house and left you with the debt. You settled all the debt, renovated the house, and then sold it. What did she invest? She is owed nothing. If you weren't able to sell or settle the debt, she wouldn't have given you anything. So just like the hen who baked the bread, she gets nothing. Keep the same energy. Next story. I, 19 female, have been no contact with my biological father since I was 16 and legally allowed to refuse visitation. Last February, I got pregnant, the first baby of the next generation of our family. My paternal grandparents, aunt and uncles were kept in the loop on the condition my father was to know absolutely nothing about my pregnancy or life in general. Around my 4th month of pregnancy, my biological father showed up at my boyfriend's and I's apartment. He should not have had our address. He then chewed me out for not telling him I was pregnant, demanded he meet my boyfriend, and threatened me with physical harm if I didn't allow him to see our child. He also threatened to sue for grandparents' rights and make false CPS reports. He knew my due date, my OB's name and office location, baby's gender, and the name we had picked. He then accused my boyfriend of beating me. My boyfriend is a pacifist and doesn't like violence at all. After he left, I called my grandparents, aunt and uncles, and told them that since I didn't know who told them, I was cutting them all out. My aunt and one of my uncles defended my father for accusing my boyfriend of beating me and also for being upset he didn't know. My grandparents and other uncles told me that I had no right to cut my father or them out. I told them I'm going no contact with them, all due to the toxicity I was receiving and that the stress they had given me was affecting my pregnancy. My son was born 6 weeks early and was in the NICU. My boyfriend had to leave his boat there to go back to work a week after he was born. My grandparents showed up at his work an hour drive from their house to harass him about not knowing our son was born the day he left the NICU. My grandmother has tried having her siblings call my mother, my brother, and me for information as well. My father called me the week when we brought my son home and asked when he could meet the baby. I told him none of them would meet my son and not to contact me or my boyfriend ever again, and also not to ask my brother for information. I told a friend about this, and a girl she was with at the time told me I'm overreacting. So, am I the a-hole? Edit. I want to clear up a few things. 1. My boyfriend and I are in the process of moving and will only have a P.O. box. 2. Grandparents' rights are a thing in my state, but he wouldn't qualify because he wouldn't meet the requirements. 3. He has a history of false CPS reports which he made on my mom, and I know everyone at the office near us and they know his history. 4. We have security cams that our current landlord approved, so we are also a one-party consent state, so I can record everything without their consent and we can have our cameras at our new place. 5. My father was extremely abusive, that's why I went no contact in the first place. He is violent and an alcoholic. 6. My friend isn't the one who made the comment, it was a girl she knows through a club at her school. She also chewed the chick out. 7. My boyfriend is on board with my decision and has told me if I want to, we can let my grandparents meet our son eventually with conditions, but it is my choice. 8. We're working on a RO, but until after incidents happen, we can't be granted one due to not enough proof. I'm so effing sorry that they won't listen to you. There is nothing more infuriating than trying to put your foot down and get people out of your life who refuse to listen. You're very much not the a-hole here. You're more than allowed to choose who does literally anything with your child, let alone see him. Keep them out of your life. They sound horrible. I cut my mom out of my life completely and I've never been healthier mentally about it. Not the a-hole. You are never the a-hole from protecting yourself and your family, boyfriend and child, from people who are willing to put you all in harm's way. Document everything possible, check local laws about recording consent, and film any incident they show up. I'm so sorry they have put you in this position. I hope you and your baby the best of luck moving forward. Next story. So about 4 years ago, when my husband and I first moved in together, his parents were in the process of buying a home and asked to borrow $3,000 for the down payment. My husband asked me and I let him make the decision since we both had a job and it didn't seem like a big deal to lend them money. I ended up getting pregnant about a month after our baby was born. He lost his job. He then went on to work odd jobs and I was paying all of our bills as he was pretty much unemployed. I paid for his immigration paperwork as well since he didn't have the money and I had savings from before we got together. This whole time, I saw it as an investment in our family since he would have a better chance at getting a good job and being here for our baby. Throughout this whole stressful time for me, not once did his parents make an effort to pay back the money they borrowed, even when we had an infant and he lost his job. Fast forward to now, and thankfully, my husband has a stable job again. I've stayed at my job all this time and have been working from home while caring for our toddler since COVID, and it has been very tough. We just made the decision that for the sake of my mental health, I will be quitting and his income will be the only one. Now, his sister, who lives with his parents and helps with bills, will be moving out with her significant other, and my brother in law told my mother in law that we will all pitch in to help with her bills. My husband hasn't told them I'm quitting, and I told my husband that it isn't fair for his family to make the assumption that we're going to help pay their bills. We haven't had a more in-depth conversation about it, but I told him we're not going to do that, especially if I'm quitting, because we're going to be down to one income. I know that we sometimes have to help out our parents, but how are we going to help them and screw ourselves over? Am I the a-hole for already thinking not to help them? Not the a-hole. The brother-in-law should have had a conversation with your husband long before telling mother-in-law this. Shame on him. Have they paid back the $3,000 yet? If not, tell brother-in-law that is either your contribution or you would like it back. Not the a-hole. Life is about choices. They bought a house that they cannot afford without help. You want to help them? Give them the number of a local realtor so they can sell the house and downsize to something they can afford. They're not your responsibility. Their problems are not your problems.